children will feet, and the morals that they worship will be gone. And the men who spurred us on sit in judgment of our own. They decide, and the shotgun sings the song.
Timeless songs. I play that when I used to teach. I played that for every class, usually, definitely after an election, because that song never gets old. It never becomes irrelevant, unfortunately. Peter Townsend. Anyway, as promised today, I'm going to talk about how you change the Constitution without amending it. Well, how's that done? Well, here's the thing. This is my Constitution, my raggedy old Constitution that's written in my back pocket for many years. I referred to it often when I was teaching. I give these out to people that take my concealed carry class. I don't know how many actually read it. That's another problem. But the question is, how do you change the Constitution? Normally, the 27 amendments that we've made to the Constitution, the last one was in 1992. It takes 2/3 of both houses of Congress, and it needs to be ratified by 3/4 of the states. And once that gets done, it becomes an amendment. Why is that so hard? We've just come off a very contentious election. 4 years were spent demonizing President Trump. Say anything, do anything in order to, get the idea across that Orange Man is bad, and half the country still voted for him. So you can see where it's difficult to do that, where you've got, to get a 2/3 majority. That's on purpose. The founders wanted to make sure that the Constitution wasn't changed on a whim according to the fashionable ideas of politics at any given time. As was the genius of the founders, is that they could see into the future in terms of, they just fought a nasty war for independence, and they did not want to dive into another country or another government that was, tyrannical. So they didn't want us changing the owner's manual to the operation of the United States in America because of what was popular at any given time. And you got to remember, we changed it 27 times, but those are 27 different instances. We passed the first 10 in one fell swoop, December 1791. We passed the Volstead Act, the 18th Amendment, making alcohol production and consumption illegal. Realized that was a horrible idea because it created, a vast boost in organized crime because people didn't want to obey the law. And so, we reversed that with another amendment to the Constitution. That's the way it is typically done. There's a convention of states, constitutional convention, things like that, but primarily that's the way that you change the Constitution. Now, what if I want to change the Constitution, but I don't want to go through that lengthy process, or I don't think that I can win? Most proposed amendments to the Constitution don't pass because they don't reach that very high level in order to become the supreme law of the land. Here's what I do. I change the meaning of the words that are already there. So rather than changing the words, I change what the words mean. Let's say, I'll pick an easy one. I'll go with the Second Amendment. Do you believe in the late 1600s in colonial America when neighbors would get together and say, hey, if your barn burns down, we're all going to get there and help put out the fire. If you break a leg, we're going to come and make sure that your cows get milk. If robbers come to your house or an invading army enters our little valley where we live, we're all going to get together and they're going to face all of us on Lexington Green and places like it. That's what it used to mean. What do militias mean now? They've been demonized, right, over several years. Who's the militia? Well, there's the organized militia, which is our National Guard. And then also in federal law, they refer to the unorganized militia, which is able-bodied citizens. Some refer to them as men, others as just citizens, which would include women, you know, between the ages of 17 and 40 who can be called out in times of emergency. Not necessarily, according to popular belief, by their government. Because what if the government is the reason that a community is under threat? Usually, when you have a militia, you have a small group of well-trained, well-maintained, you know, volunteers, school teachers, shopkeepers, clergymen. There was a black robe regiment made up of clergymen during the Revolutionary War. So they've changed it now, right? Now they're a bunch of fat white supremacists running around the woods in army surplus uniforms, right? Flying the Gadsden flag, which is a conversation for another day. So if we want to get rid of the inalienable right to bear arms, we make sure that militias are evil, and we make sure that we train our young people in schools and on media that by arms, the founders never envisioned the types of weaponry that we have now. So therefore, you know, that wasn't what the founders intended. So we're going to get rid of these guns and this piece of equipment and that thing, and we're going to limit these people. And how did that all happen? Well, they didn't change the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment has stood since 1791. They changed the meaning of the words of the Second Amendment. We're doing it now with the First Amendment, you know, with the number of people, including our president, who have been banned from social media because of stuff that is considered, what do we do? You know, the First Amendment is designed to protect unpopular speech, right? If you and I are buddies and we do nothing but like each other's social media comments, there doesn't need to be a First Amendment protecting us from each other. We need a First Amendment to protect speech, writing, religion, assembly, and petition. That's the mind trick I used to teach my students to learn the Bill of Rights. We use that we change the meaning, right? We call it hate speech. Anything I don't like is now hate speech. And if you speak in defense of it, then you're doing hate speech too. And all of a sudden, the First Amendment isn't quite as much of a protection as it used to be, because somebody didn't like what it said. So rather than changing what it said, they changed what it means. How do we do that? We get judges. We get activist judges who believe the Constitution is a living document that is subject to changes in interpretation by these judges. And if we don't have a majority on the Supreme Court, we do what more than likely the Biden-Harris administration is going to do within, you know, the first short period of their inauguration tomorrow. They're going to increase the number of justices on the Supreme Court to a number where they have enough people who interpret the law the way they want it interpreted, and that's the way it will stay until who knows. So that's how you change the Constitution. Now, how is that possible? You know, how can somebody know anything about the Constitution and think that that's a good idea? Well, there's the second problem. Stop teaching people about the Constitution. If you are about my age, and in men, if your beard is this color, you may have gone to school at a time before they changed civics into social studies. And in civics, it was learning how the government worked. I bet I've had between 700 and 800 college students come to my classes during the time that I taught at the university. Guess how many of them, of those 700 to 800, now these are people that are supposed to be the smart ones, right? The ones who come, and a lot of them expect to put on a badge and a gun and take an oath and go be police officers. How many of them have been able to name, they don't even have to explain, just name the First Amendment, the first 10 amendments to the Constitution? Zero. None of them have been able to do that. I had one student who could recite the preamble to the Constitution, which was amazing. She had a teacher who made sure she learned that. But none of them could name it. So that's why everybody who takes my class, regarding what the title of the class was, learned the Bill of Rights. And I've had people who took 2 or 3 of my classes, and by the 3rd class, they still couldn't do it. Why? Because they're stupid? No, but they're smart. It's just that when you learn things, if you don't use it, if you don't refer to it, if another professor doesn't expect you to incorporate that into your critical thinking, you forget. So unless you wind up in a class with Professor Noreen, how much actually gets taught, and how much of what is taught is based upon, this is an outdated document and we need to change what it means because we don't have the votes to amend it according to the amendment process. So that's where it's at. I recommend that, this is not a large thing. This is a pamphlet, right? And it's the whole Constitution, the owner's manual for the operation of the United States of America. How many people have read it? How many people know what it says? How many people know what it means? What the initial intent was? Not enough. Not enough to keep what's happening from what's happening. I'll leave you with this as we come up on minute 11. When a document like the Constitution can mean anything, it means nothing. And we are now living in a post-constitutional society, if that is true. So I wish you well. Stay safe this week. Those of you who are my former students who are starting classes on Monday, as we say in the cowboy world, cinch up your saddle and screw down your hat because you're going for a ride. It's going to be an interesting spring. So take care, stay safe, stay sharp.